I think a lot of times when people hear you say, I don't sin, or as a Christian, you're not supposed to sin, or yield your body over to sin.
No, as a Christian, you can't sin.
Right. As a Christian, you can't sin.
Right.
But I think the understanding, and that's true, but the understanding is that you will encounter temptations to sin. Because the temptations don't go away because you're a Christian. They're still there. But the idea is that Jesus overcame that power and that bondage. So that's why he said sin won't have dominion over you. So you're still going to encounter the temptation to sin, but now Jesus gave us the power to overcome it, which whereas before we didn't have that power.
Give me an example of encounter the temptation to sin.
For instance, like for me, like last year, I was involved with a guy, and I told him, I mean, he's supposedly a Christian man, but I said that I wouldn't kiss before marriage or have sex before marriage. And so what happened was there were moments where it was like we would be in a environment where I was being tempted because he's close to me and like we could actually go there.
Right.
But in my spirit and my faith being in Christ, I have the power to overcome that. So I'm going to encounter the temptation to sin, but as a Christian, I don't have to yield myself over to it.
So what aspect of that is the sin? You were tempted to do what?
To go outside of God's order,
By doing what? By being with him?
Yeah, being with him. And
oh, that's so good. How many people agree? You agree with her?
not like being with him,
No,
but
I don't mean
like
no.
taking it to that.
The sin aspect, from what you're saying, is the fact you were tempted to kiss him or have sex or whatever, right?
Right.
And if had you done that, you would have gone outside of God.
Yeah, it would have been
Right.
outside of God's order.
Okay, so the temptation was to kiss him, and that's the sin.
Yeah.
Okay, and you say you agree with that? Now she all raised her hand now somewhat. Beta! No, I'm kidding. And what part of that you agree with?
That temptation will be there.
Oh, and if she had gone all the way, had the sex out of wedlock and kissed him, would that have been the sin?
No.
What would have been the sin? Because she said that's what the sin is. That's what it takes you outside of God.
That's not the sin. The sin is the reason why you're having sex out of wedlock. Like the spirit in you that you're listening to and keeping into. You're trying to fulfill a need through that action. You're trying to find love in that, in whatever it is.
But she's already a Christian, and she believes in God. And so if she's with the boyfriend, and he's a Christian, and she's a Christian, and when two Christians come together, you know it's going to be holy, right? No, I'm kidding. Okay. But she resisted because she believed in God. Yeah. Because had she done it, she would have gone outside of God. She would have sinned. Do you agree with that? Am I saying it right, Shana?
Yeah.
Okay. Is she right about that?
Well, the sin is not the kissing. I mean, the kissing, I think, opens the door for other things to happen. So it's not a sin to kiss someone, but if obviously the sin is the spirit that if you have sex with someone out of wedlock, the actual act is not the sin. It's why you're doing it. You're trying to like find, or in a way it's like some kind of drug. You're trying to find love, or you're trying to get something out of that action. I guess. I don't know.
Anybody know her? She need an Uber. No, I'm playing. No, you're close. This is such a good point, too.
But so can I respond to that, though?
Yes.
Because
get the mic. You have the mic?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh, okay.
Because if you go back to the beginning with Adam and Eve, they were God's. They were him. They were his, his creation. They were one with the Father. And he told them there was one thing they wasn't supposed to do, and he told them the consequences of doing that thing. Right. And that was the sin, was disobeying God, disobeying his instruction, disobeying what he had laid out was his righteousness and his standard of holiness. So so as soon as they sinned, yeah, it obviously put us into this fallen state.
Right.
So for me, it wasn't like the sin had nothing to do with the intention or whether I was looking for love in that place. The sin was the disobedience. You know, if I
And
have
the
that.
disobedience was to get with a guy that you're not married to, right?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's so good. I totally understand what you're saying. Yes, Mark.
I disagree in that the sin was not the disobedience. That's where a lot of Christians go wrong.
What's the sin?
The sin of Adam and Eve originally was believing the devil, which leads to the disobedience. See, the disobedience is just the end result of what you believe.
This is so amazing. I love it. No, I'm totally loving it right now. Don't stop. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sin. I think it's kind of like driving without a license, you know? Yeah, it's like you don't have a driver's license, but still driving anyways.
That's
You know, you might go to
amazing.
jail and, you know, but it's not a sin.
And not, what's not a sin?
The sex and the kissing.
You would say that. That's easy for you to say. I'll come back to that. I got to do this because of time, and I know I'm glad everybody want to participate, right? But who's going to read Romans 6:16? That you?
I was reading 17.
You read 7? Who has? Oh, Christine. Romans 6:16. And then I'll come back and pick up on it. Don't let me forget.
Romans 6:16. Don't you know that when you offer yourself to someone as obedient slaves, you are slaves of the one you obey, whether you are slaves to sin, which lead to death, or to obedience, which leads to righteousness.
Amazing. Baba, go to God. Let me read yours for that too. So good. That's what I'm looking for. Baba, go to God. I want to hear his, because this Bible is I think it's a Catholic Bible or something.
What is the implication? That we are free to sin now that we are not under law but under grace? Out of the question. You know well that if you undertake to be somebody's slave and obey him, you are the slave of him you obey. You can be the slave either of sin, which leads to death, or of obedience, which leads to saving justice.
Amazing. And the last one is 6:17 of Rome. You know how men are slave to women? Women are sex dealers, and men are sex addicts. They're a slave. That's why they become little boys in relationships and everything. Just saying. But go ahead.
Verse 17. But thanks be to God that though you used to be slaves to sin, you have come to obey from your heart the pattern of teaching that has now claimed your allegiance. You have been set free from sin and have become slaves to righteousness.
Thank you. You've been set free from sin. And because your heart changed. When you go and forgive, then God will forgive you and he'll change your heart. And then once he changes your heart, all those things and weaknesses and things you had prior to him saving you from that will start to fall away. And so if you do find yourself in a situation like what Charnel mentioned, you wouldn't give into it. But let's say you did, you're new, you're still weak, you're growing. The sin would not be the act itself. The sin would be your judgment of the act. If you got mad at yourself, if Satan is able to make you say, oh, you're supposed to be a Christian, now you're like, oh, I hate myself. The moment, that's the sin, is to judge yourself. Because if she did find herself in a situation like that and she is a Christian, she would know not to do it. But let's say she did it, she would realize, I should have done that. But she wouldn't hate herself for it, she wouldn't hate the guy for it, she wouldn't judge herself, and she'll lose that appetite. And if she get in that situation again, it'll be nothing. And she wouldn't give into it because she wouldn't have the appetite of it anymore because she did not judge it. The sin is the judgment. And what Adam did, Adam denied, he doubted his father. When Eve went over and told him, well, my daddy Satan told me to tell you, don't listen to him. You don't listen to your daddy. Your daddy is trying to control you. And once he believed her, who had believed the serpent, he doubted God, his Father. Prior to that, he had a perfect relationship with the Father because he believed in the Father. He believed what the Father said. Now that's why once you wake up and you doubt every thought, you automatically have faith in the Father. You believe the Father. Adam doubted and fell away. When we believe, we come back. And the only way you're going to believe is that you must doubt. You must be born again, but you must doubt every thought. And so and I want you to, don't learn this, I want you to hear me. The sin is not the act. The sin is your judgment of the act. Playing God. Hating yourself as though you're in control of something and you're not in control of anything. All by ourselves, we can do nothing. All by ourselves, we can know nothing. That's why in that fallen state, Satan have you doing all kind of weird stuff. Stuff you say, I would never do. I would never be jealous, or I would never have sex with. I would never, and you find yourself doing it, right? But once you come back to the Father, you would never do those things because you're fulfilled. You don't need to do them. It won't be necessary. Because now you have the perfect love, and the perfect love casts out all that. So the sin is playing God. When you hate your fellow man, that's why God is love. And when we become his children, we have to love all too. We will not have to. You would naturally love all people, even your enemy, because you see that they can't see. And you will hold nothing against them because you know yourself and you know how you were before you overcame. The sin is the judgment. I want you to, and if you doubt me, just pay attention. You will see. The sin is the judgment, but the lying preachers have told you it's the sex. Now, what happens is, and then I'll come to, you got later there, here, and here too, right? What happens is, I noticed, well, I've seen this all my life, well, most of my life. I noticed that with Christians, not all, they are some of the most dishonest people you ever want to meet. They are. They're not honest people at all. They'll talk about you behind your back. I used to work for a hospital, and I used to work with Christians. I worked in a transcribing department, and I worked with some Christian ladies who just all over the place, quote the Bible, talk about the end time. Oh, the Lord's going to take me up. And while at the same time they were stealing equipment for the bosses, pens and papers, and they were cheating on the 8 hours. They would be doing things instead of working. They promised, okay, you pay me $100 an hour, I'll work full 8 hours for you, but they wouldn't work the whole 8 hours, especially if the boss wasn't looking. And I just say, how in the world do these people think that they are Christians when they're not keeping their words, when you're not looking at them? If you're a true Christian, your boss would never have to worry about you. The husband or the wife would never have to be concerned because you're going to do the right thing. It wouldn't be an issue. Have you seen Christians who steal at work? They steal time, all kinds of stuff. And they call themselves Christian. You can't do that if you're a child of God. You cannot do it. But if you're not a child of God but claim it to be, you can do it. You can lie to your husband or wife or your boss or the sister in the alley. You can lie. That's a song, in case y'all haven't heard it. That makes sense? So listen, I don't want you to learn this. Get to know for yourself so you know that you know. Stop sinning. Stop hating. And watch how everything starts to fall away. And eventually it will be as though you don't even have a past. I was telling James this morning here at the church that when I think about myself, I try to remember what was I like then as opposed to now. And I'm really not much different. My personality is somewhat the same. I just don't do the things I used to do. I don't have that. It's like I don't have that same desire because I used to have so many ladies, like they call me Sweetback. And I never imagined that you could live and have a peaceful, perfect life like that. I don't have fear of people. I'll be honest with you whether you like me back or not. It's fine. because I love you and I want you to wake up, you know, so I'll be honest with you. And I've seen so many Christians fall away from friendships and things like that. The moment they get mad, they'll love you up until they get mad. And the moment they get mad, that's it. It changed the whole relationship. There's no room for anything. Either you be like I want you to be or nothing. Have you seen Christians like that? But I'll allow you. Get mad at me, fine. You come back and say, hey, I was wrong, I'm sorry. No big deal. Because I understand you can help him. And when you wake up as sons and daughters of God, you're going to understand too. You'll speak up, but you won't hate.